Hello, I'm Beverly Copeland. This is the Beverly Copeland Report. Today is Sunday, August the 28th, 2016. Today is Sunday, August the 28th, 2016. This is the Beverly Copeland Report. The Beverly Copeland Report is available on YouTube. You can access this episode and some more recent episodes at YouTube under the Beverly Copeland Report. This is really a continuation of my last episode that aired on BronxNet the first Sunday of this month. Now, this is a continuation of that because there needs to be an expansion on some ideas. I don't have much time, like I didn't have much time last time, to really flesh out these ideas. But let me start by saying that I am philosophically driven by a sense of moral order and justice. I'm going to repeat that. I am philosophically driven by a sense of moral order and justice. I guess that is because the greatest influence on my life was my late great and honorable mother, Clara Childers Copeland. So like many other people, my mother was the greatest influence in my life. My mother was my best friend and my most important teacher. So as the economy, the looming and inevitable economic collapse occurs, it's not only my personal tragedy, but it's capitalism's personal tragedy that I no longer have my most important teacher, including my most important teacher about business and capitalism, with me to tutor me. Now, again, I am philosophically, anyone who knew my mother, and she was most influenced by her mother, anyone who knew my mother knows my mother was more of a Christian than anyone, my brother, sister, or I could have ever known or could ever know. So I am philosophically driven by a sense of moral order and justice. Therefore, my belief, I am a true believer in capitalism. You say, how can she say that? That is not contradictory whatsoever. And today, the thrust of this episode is going to prove that. I am a proud and abashed supporter of Anglo-Saxon Western capitalism. Again, my mother, my greatest influence. My parents had mom and pop businesses in the poorest congressional district of the United States, and they ran them like charities, although capitalism is not charitable, but they were phenomenal entrepreneurs. It is capitalism's loss that because of racism and segregation, they were not allowed to realize their full potential within the parameters of American capitalism. But they did a phenomenal job on the margins. But moving right along. So I also discussed last time that philosophy is really the foundation on which a civilization is built. Truly, truly it is. Everything has philosophical underpinnings, whether it's mathematics, arts and culture, science, technology, whatever, it has philosophical underpinnings. The greatest philosopher, I completed 2 majors at an Ivy League university as an undergraduate, philosophy and political science, and therefore I have learned that the greatest Western thinker, the greatest Western philosopher, was a man who was illiterate. Socrates could not read or write, yet we know of his phenomenal genius via his students, most notably Plato, who gave their teacher Socrates credit. Now, people say, but yes, and I say that, yes, this is true. The greatest Western thinker was, in fact, Socrates, yes. Now, I'm also keenly aware that recent research has documented the fact that Greek philosophy is rooted in Egyptian philosophy. We think about the book by the very famous black historian, Stolen Legacy. or we think about more recently the series by the Cornell professor Black Athena, Brunel's his books, Black Athena. Yes, that is true. It is rooted in Egyptian philosophy, Egyptian science, Egyptian medicine, law, arts, and yes, Greek civilization is. That is definitely true. Think about it. How could it have been Pythagoras' theorem, right, if the pyramids predated Pythagoras? Right? So I could go on. But moving right, let me just say this too. But it doesn't stop there. Egyptian philosophy, science, technology, religion, etc., is rooted in sub-Saharan Black African civilization, Timbuktu. So we can always go back and go back and go back. Yes, that does not in any way, to my mind, diminish the contribution of Socrates, who was intelligent enough to appreciate the philosophical genius of the Egyptians, and the Egyptians, they realized the philosophical genius of the sub-Saharans, most notably the civilization of Timbuktu. Let me say this too. Why, again, I say I can reconcile. I am philosophically driven by a sense of moral order and justice and a proud, unabashed supporter of Anglo-Saxon Western capitalism, especially of the military-industrial complex. I can reconcile that because as a philosophy major, I studied things like Hegelian dialectics. So I understand that there is, human history really is the synthesis of theory, capitalist theory, and human action leads to human history. What we do, what we think and how we act equals what we do. And that is an ongoing dialectical process. We are moving away from the barbaric capitalism that existed during the Industrial Revolution. Of course, we've got all sorts of things now, labor protection, minimum wage, so many protections. I believe in social evolution. I believe that through fits and starts, we are, ironically, through technology, we are evolving to a better place, technology is going to liberate us. In fact, it is going to help us become more religious because it's going to be easier for people to do the right thing when they have the comforts that technology liberates, that technology offers society. So, capitalism, socialism, communism, fascism, whatever, totalitarian, whatever, they are just ideas, blueprints for human action. They're ideas. They can never be realized in this world. They can only be in their pure form because they can only exist in the mind as ideas. Perfection can only exist in the mind as an idea. There's no perfect chair, there's no perfect house, there's no perfect car, and ladies, I'm sad to say, there is no perfect man. Perfection can only exist as an idea in the head. We take theory, whether it's capitalist theory or whatever, and then human action attempts to realize it, and then what do we get? Human history, what actually occurs. A lot of things are cyclical, and that is part of the ongoing human tragedy. But so capitalism, let me say why capitalism demands market expansion and growth. When the economy, therefore predatory capitalism, by definition is anti-capitalistic, predatory capitalism is anti-cap because it destroys market share. It inhibits market growth. It is anti-capitalistic. So the idea that the social services, the people responsible for social governance have created a system whereby people have to self-destruct to become dysfunctional, typically dysfunctional addicts, in order to get help from the government in these United States, is anti-capitalistic. It is anti-capitalistic to destroy consumers. It is anti-capitalistic. However, the Dutch model that I alluded to, the model in Holland, where if you're unemployed, you become like part of a leisure class, you still are productive, receiving subsidies from the government, but you don't have to become you don't self-destruct and become an addict. That is the system that the capitalists prefer. Because in Holland, those unemployed workers are healthy, vibrant consumers. They're healthy, vibrant consumers, right? They're not cannibalizing, they're not dysfunctional. That's not, it has been an assault on Anglo-Saxon Western capitalism, what the people responsible for the governance of this country have done. How they have destroyed vast segments of the population. It is a betrayal of the covenant. It is a betrayal of Western capitalism. It is a betrayal of American, Anglo-Saxon, Western American capitalism. Let me be clear. It is betrayal to have created this level of dysfunction. It is anti-capitalistic because by definition, capitalists want market expansion and growth. They are not charitable enterprises. As I said the last time, they are driven by the profit motive. They are not in the business of supporting dysfunction. They're in the business of supporting productive members of society, even if they're unemployed. Productive members of society who are consumers who make intelligent choices, and the more affluent the consumer, the more to the liking of the capitalist class. Not only do they want healthy, vibrant consumers, they want affluent consumers too. Capitalism has evolved, going back to the Hegelian dialectics, the theory, human action, and then history. Capitalism has evolved. They want healthy, vibrant consumers to be able to buy all those gadgets and gizmos to increase their profits because they're driven by profits, whether they're unemployed or employed. Now you say, so I have a lot to talk about. So I hope I cleared the air on that. It was anti-capitalistic. What has been done by the people responsible for the governance of this country have done to broad swaths of the American population. In order to get help from the government, they've had to self-destruct. That is anti-capitalistic. So you say, why in America was it this way? In Holland, it was a different approach. Going back, I wanted to say all this. I didn't have enough time. I don't even have much time here, so let me hurry up. Why? I'll tell you why. I alluded to it the last time. The them versus us mentality, which is fundamental to Western thinking. Again, as a philosophy and political science major, specifically having completed 2 majors at an Ivy League university, it is clear to me that the philosophical underpinning for Western thought is a them versus us mentality. Gay, straight, men, women, rich, poor, black, white. So the people who are responsible for social services see poor people not as one of them, but as the other. So they fail to make, as I have discussed, I've been discussing this for years. So they fail to make human connections. They fail to make human connections with poor people, with unemployed people, for people who slip through the cracks, because they're socialized to think them versus us. Okay. In Holland, and they look different, the demographics of America, the whites are ethnic, they're not all one group, they're Irish, they're English, they're Welsh, they're Scots, they're Italian, they're Greek, they're Polish, whatever. So it's always them. And then they're blacks, and then they're Latinos, Native Americans, etc., etc. But in Holland, on the other case, it's really a more, relatively speaking, it is a homogeneous society. So they could make the human connections because it's your brother, it's your sister, it's your mother, it's your father who's unemployed, because it's an ethnically pure, for the most part, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant society, Dutch society. That's why that contributed to it. Other factors are at play. I'm not naive, but that's what contributed to it. But I want to be clear, from a capitalist critique, they don't want this dysfunction. They have to be furious with the people responsible for the governance of this country for destroying such potentially lucrative markets for American Anglo-Saxon Western capitalism. I am philosophically driven by a sense of moral order and justice. I am a true believer in Anglo-Saxon Western capitalism. Now I have to move on. What else did I have? Put a little note. By the way, getting back to Greek philosophy is rooted in Egyptian, and Egyptian is rooted in sub-Saharan Timbuktu, etc., etc. Even American democracy, the principles of American democracy, which Thomas Jefferson is often credited, he is most credited with developing. Actually, these are Native American ideas. This is really these ideas of that Western democracy, most notably articulated by Thomas Jefferson, actually really have the roots in Native American concepts of governance and justice and law and philosophy. Most notably, the Iroquois people. American democracy is really built on a foundation of the philosophical traditions of the Iroquois people, Native American people. Now I got to go on because I get sidetracked. So now there's nothing new under the sun. So yes, the Bronx is a microcosm for the fall of the American empire. No society has been ever to withstand the dysfunction that we find in the Bronx. I talked about last time 2 typical responses to revive a fallen empire, the Nazi and then Chairman Mao, the opposites. Actually, the political spectrum is not really linear, where they're separated, opposite ends separated. It's really a circular. There's convergence between the left and the right. There's convergence between the left and the right. So, for example, I have less problems listening to conservatives than I do to so-called liberals, because of the hypocrisy of the so-called liberal. Okay, so I mentioned prison. Okay, first how am I going to get all this in? Well, I mentioned that prisons should be rigged to, the quickest way to straighten out this mess is to rig prisons to be such a horrific experience that it becomes a deterrent. To release people from prison is unconscionable because you're going to release them with just what? With a one-way ticket back to their mothers to terrorize their mothers. They're being released with very little drug treatment, without housing, with very little housing, health care, no job. So what are they going to do? They're going to go back to their mothers and terrorize them. That is unconscionable. So, what unfortunately I don't have much time, some misguided young people commit crimes to go to prison. You say, oh, yes. You know why? Because they get their 3 square meals and they get a bed to place the roof over their head and 3 square meals every day. So since there's no opportunity, that the system is rigged, they commit crimes to get, what do they call it? It's called 3 square and a cot. Now, in my opinion, prison should be such a horrific experience that people don't want to go to prison. It incentivizes them being productive members of society. It won't lead to the kind of ruthless exploitation that existed with the Industrial Revolution, capital I, capital R, because again, history is life is a dialectical process, and the capitalists have learned through the dialectical process using Hegelian dialectics from the theory of capitalism to human action to human history, that the best consumer is a healthy, educated, not necessarily healthy, wealthy, well-adjusted consumer. Henry Ford was considered a radical and a revolutionary when he said, now that I've developed this technique to mass produce cars, I'm going to pay my workers enough money so that they can buy my damn cars, the Ford cars, the Model Ts, so that he can mass produce them. He said, well, I'd be an idiot not to pay my workers enough money not to be, and he did. And the rest is history. Life is a dialectical process. Capitalism as a theory has evolved. Henry Ford was considered radical and revolutionary at the time when he said, I'm going to pay Ford workers enough so that they can buy my cars, and I can sell so many cars, they're going to be a mass-produced item. My wealth is going to go up exponentially, and the well-being and wealth of my workers is too. Capitalism evolves. It is a dialectical process, borrowing from Hegelian dialectics. By the way, not all Western thinkers think like that zero-sum. The most notable Western philosopher who did not think like that zero-sum was the German philosopher Immanuel Kant. In Kantian terms, it is in the enlightened self-interest, right, for the capitalists to be more inclusive, broader in their thinking. In Kantian terms, in terms of the German philosopher Immanuel Kant. Moving right along. So Ford was considered, oh my God, what is he doing? But then the other capitalists saw, it makes sense to pay them more. They can buy more of everything. So the idea that the people responsible for the governance of this country have destroyed broad swaths of the American population by making them dysfunctional underclass instead of following the model like they have in Holland, where they are productive members of society, a leisure class. By the way, they support the arts too. These people could be going to the Nuyorican Cafe or going to the Black Theater or whatever, or even Broadway or whatever, Ailey, whatever, the Bolshoi, ABT, whatever, the Philharmonic, Jazz at Lincoln Center, support the arts. And it's so much cheaper to the Dutch model. The cost is a fraction of the cost of destroying human beings. So Ford was, but I have so much I don't have much time. Jesus, I yap. I wanted to go over so much. So prison should be a deterrent. And let me just say this. There is what is known the soft bigotry of low expectations. I'm going to repeat that. The soft bigotry of low expectations. Foreigners, if immigrants can do it, Americans can too. The soft bigotry of low expectations to say that underclass Americans can't achieve within the context of the American capitalism, yet people who come here from horrific situations, psychologically scarred from horrific wars and civil strife and all horrible damage to their quote-unquote psyche, can come here and realize the American dream. They don't speak English, they don't read English, they don't write English, yet they can come here and realize the American dream, and they have been horrifically scarred by, rape, murder, seeing their mother, grandmother rape, murder, whatever, interned in Indo-Chinese camps, really concentration camps, till they come to a studio apartment in Chinatown, 5 families, their parents don't speak English, and it's expected that those kids are going to get through the public education school system in New York City, excel, and get scholarships to Harvard, Yale, or to go to the city university and enter the mainstream. Yet American citizens born here, bred here, generations, fluent in English, the expectation is that they're going to fail. The soft bigotry of low expectations. There's no excuse for it. It's just that the whole system is rigged for Americans to fail, yet not immigrants. So you have to institutionalize, incentivize people being productive. One of the ways is by making prison a deterrent. A deterrent. Capitalism needs to change the way the system is rigged. People should not have to self-destruct if there are no jobs. It's not that they can't find jobs. There are no jobs that offer a living rich for many, many Americans. That's another episode of the Beverly Copeland Report. I have a lot to talk about. There's so much that I don't have time. But if the immigrants can come here not reading, writing, speaking English from horrific situations, scarred psychologically beyond belief, it's just the power of the mind, the expectations that these Asians can, without the psychological scarring and all of that, are going to realize the American dream. Yet American citizens are going to be dysfunctional, have to self-destruct. The soft bigotry of low expectations. But the one step is making prison a deterrent, and then stop these structural issues that need to be addressed, like you need to self-destruct to get help from the government. I had so much that I wanted to talk. The economy is a bubble. Anyone who followed the Beverly Copeland Report over the decades know that going back to when Bill Clinton first created the bubble economy, I said anyone who's had macroeconomics 101 knows what you're supposed to do is prick it, induce a mild recession. The longer you wait, the bigger the bubble's going to be. So when it collapses or bursts on its own or it's pricked, you're going to have the most horrific economic collapse in the annals of human history, with all the horrific scapegoating, especially the scapegoating by the people who engineered the bubble, which can only collapse. The economic collapse is looming and inevitable. Trump is telling the truth. It is looming and inevitable, and it is why there's nothing anyone can do at this point, because they've had about 20 years to straighten it out, and it's too late. The bubble has gotten so big. That is going to be horrible when it happens. But there's nothing that anyone can do. The idea that anyone would expect me to get in cahoots with the people who engineered this to steal Anglo-Saxon Western capitalism away from the capitalist class, pennies on the dollar through bankruptcy, is a lunatic. I'm a true believer in Anglo-Saxon Western capitalism. The Jews should be most relieved that I can't work. I'm Beverly Copeland. This has been the Beverly Copeland Report.